This keyboard must be broken or something. Somebody's gotta be cheating.
Play of the game.
Who is this Carpe guy?
That's how we do it in Philip.
The New York Excelsior were deemed the chosen ones by all of the analysts who predicted their trajectory throughout the playoffs. Their ticket to the Barclays Center was all but stamped, signed, and delivered before they even had to play the games, but that's the reason why you play. You gotta show up on stage, and the Philadelphia Fusion put them in their place. There's a lot of discussion that can be had based on the format, the trajectory of the NYXL, the prevalence of how a patch can utterly swing the strength of different types of teams, but at the end of the day, the NYXL did not show up and win when it counted, making for a lot of fans really disappointed with their otherwise dominant season. And although I too thought they would overcome any obstacle to get to the grand final, this second series that they played against Philadelphia was one for the ages, which is why I'm making this massive video breaking down the insane plays that occurred on that day. NYXL's inaugural season may not have led to the grand final, but they definitely put up a very good fight after getting destroyed in the very first set. Soon I'll be doing a video on my grand finals prediction as well as a review of the playoffs and the season as a whole, so I'll leave further commentary based on the format to be included in that video. You can't make any excuses for NYXL. They knew what was going to be coming. It was on them to be able to adapt to the meta. Philly brought the heat against Boston and then overcame NYXL and deserve all the credit in the world. Today we're going to break down the entire 5-map epic series that nearly saw NYXL push it to a third, and we'll be highlighting the biggest impact plays chronologically through the maps. This first clip is a little bit odd for how I usually approach these things because I typically don't nitpick on player mechanics and small decision making, but when you're in a meta where Jjonak can't play Zenyatta 24/7 and he has to flex onto other heroes, it was an important check to see if he could rise to the occasion to make as big of a carry impact as he did throughout the season from his role. And ultimately over the series, I think a lot of these cases we can isolate individual player plays that weren't optimized perfectly that end up resulting in the team losing. We're in a meta where popping off individually at any moment can define the entire team fight. Not just from the Widow and Hanzo double sniper, but especially the Roadhog as well. And it's this clip here on the NYXL defense that I was a little disappointed in. Mechanically, he looks a little bit flustered as he misses this hook and finds himself out in no man's land. And what I really wish Jjonak ended up doing here is go for the carry mode play that any DPS player that gets caught in the backline like this against a bunch of tanks probably would have done. As you start to see the peel back come to punish you for your misposition, it's not the time to panic and wish that you were able to get back to your team. In fact, you can get a ton of value from this spot if you pull more attention towards you to come try to clean up your backline harassment. Keep in mind, there is a mega health pack inside this house that I think Jjonak definitely could have made his way to in order to regen the second half of his health. This is incredibly important because Roadhog as a character, especially when you're playing in the single heal meta, needs to do little tricks and optimizations in order to keep himself up. And just sneaking away instead of committing to this spot as they tried to flush him out would have got his cooldowns back again and likely been a terror in the enemy team's backline and possibly could have changed the entire outcome of this Streets phase. Jjonak definitely did have some good plays in the series as well, particularly on the Ana. We'll break that down later, but I don't think his Roadhog play was particularly strong, which is important when you look to the other teams in the playoffs, such as London, who Bedosian on the Roadhog has just been destroying it. That's just what you need out of your flex support nowadays, and you have to be able to bring up the goods from that position, because the meta we're in is all about mechanical plays. This next clip on the Junkertown defensive third kind of shows how uncomfortable NYXL is in these really scrappy, chaotic fights, which is something that the Philadelphia Fusion definitely excel in. This isn't the first time we're going to witness Mano getting left out on his own to die off screen, but which makes us wonder, is he not appropriately taking account for the amount of damage he's going to be taking? It's hard to see, but he commits to stopping this cart, which is a very difficult thing to do as Orisa. In general, just against the dive on this wide open map, this Orisa pick is kind of questionable because the attack is always going to be able to surround him. But as the Orisa in this position, you really cannot afford to take damage because your teammates around you can do way more work with the healing than you can. And once you start to lose your shield and your cooldowns and you get discorded, you're just a free kill. Not really buying any time for your team at all. And maybe if he was a Winston here, he could touch the cart and start running away and just chaining his tanking presence on the cart, slowing it down while the rest of his team found kills. But playing the Orisa here and committing to that spot just gets him dead. And realistically, the rest of his team can't afford to put the resources in to keep him up either because they have to win the duels in the arena of combat. If they put all their attention onto the cart, they're just going to die. And this becomes a big problem because with Mano out of the fight, that shield is the main thing that's going to be able to keep the team together. As long as your Orisa bunker is up, a ton of damage sources just can do nothing to a big percentage of your team. But since it goes down, Philadelphia is able to come on this retake, funneling into the fight. EQO even pulls out the Dragon Blade and gets destroyed by Libero. But because the fusion tanks have better run back time than Mano does, they're getting to the cart well before the slow characters of NYXL does. This leaves Meko in Baby Diva form high and dry. He gets killed, and without a Diva mech to sort of secure the bunker, this is just slowly going to be an L that NYXL has to take. Worse yet, Pine goes for a typical Pine flank, gets discorded and focused down easily. Something that the casters said in this broadcast at a point, it's going to be at King's Row, was that when things are going wrong with NYXL, they look like every player is trying to step up to make the big play, rather than being confident in what the team play should have been. If you look at this again, I think it comes down to a principle of being way too greedy to stop this cart, which is usually not something NYXL ever does. They're usually very liberal with allowing objective time, especially when it doesn't matter. Getting this cart around the bend, you just have to stop it every now and again, stepping a toe on it to make sure that it doesn't keep moving fluidly, but most of your attention has to be on the team fight or else you fall victim to the attackers having the freedom to engage on you however they want. They seemingly lost track of the respawn rate of the enemy, who have a much better run back time with all of their mobility characters, and they just get completely caught out by the reinforcements from the fusion. The bunker comp absolutely has to have their full team alive to function, whereas a scrappy version of half of a dive comp can make mobility plays in order to dance around immobile characters anyway. They really want a mid-fight broken up, whereas the bunker comp excels more at the break of the fight when it's a full 6v6. But in any case, I don't even think the fusion had less numbers either way, especially with Meko not in his suit yet. This is problematic because really, you're not supposed to lose Junkertown very easily on third. It's supposed to be the best place to hide back and bunker back, but it usually requires you to stand and set up all the way at the end. Being too greedy to stop the cart causes for your defense to just be flimsy towards any mobility fragging play that the offense sets up. Something cool that punctuated this series was a lot of very good uses of Dragon Strike to clear off teams and punish them for positioning. I do believe both teams utilized this Dragon to clear off the aggro positioning on the high ground here on Streets phase, and it works beautifully to just set up for a really clean take out of the NYXL, Pine hitting some 6 shots to boot. But it looks like Philadelphia have really done their homework against these Dragon Strike plays because they're going to be prepared for some of the most common Dragon Strike breaches that the offense can set up. However, they never in a million years were going to be seeing this one coming through the wall to the enemy's spawn, only getting the Mercy, which is fortuitous, but incredibly sick nonetheless. Now look how the Philadelphia Fusion are playing this. Their bunker is set up way more defensively because it's so much easier and reliable to play from this back end of the map, even if you have to give up a little bit more cart. Trying to play Ring Around the Rosie in the center bit only works once you have a man advantage to work off of, and if the enemy has a ton of different angles, it's too hard. They secure home base first, then push out of it. Now, set up on the spawn chokehold to make it punishing for NYXL to come out, they have all the angles covered, and even better, they're very safe from these ultimate engages out of the spawn. If they're too close to this wall, we've seen it a lot in the playoffs thus far, you could just send the Dragon Strike through everything, and in fact, NYXL will attempt to do that, but they're set up their bunker a little bit off center to the left. because the easiest place for the offense to come out is on that right side. And if they do launch a dragon directly at the bunker where it is now, it's very easy to see it coming. Whereas if you're hugged up really tight to that corner, the dragon is going to destroy you. Let's look how Libero tries to launch out the dragon in order to punish this angle. They do get the pretty cool halt onto EQO to suck him into it, and Neptuno very nearly dies to it, which probably would have changed the entire momentum of this game. Boombox using the whole hog to make space for the Mercy res to come through. Chaos erupts. A lot of fragging is going to go back and forth. Pine makes the big play flank in order to collapse down in the bunker. But even though Philly is ending up to lose this fight, this is kind of a win for the defense because the offense used some good resources in order to break out of there. Not too many, to be honest, but a few. And this cart just hasn't moved in this entire fight. In fact, it had been rolling back from the previous push anyway. If you're going to lose a fight on defense, slow is the best way to do it. Whereas if that Mercy dies instantly, they probably all get melted immediately or just had to retreat. So all things considered, not a bad scenario for the defense. Again, reestablishing, nobody left straggling out in the open. They all set up in this back end defensible position, but Pine is on the infiltration mission. However, like his previous flank before, Philadelphia is more or less ready for Pine to do these tactics. Live by the Pine, die by the Pine. He does get behind Carpe for a punish, but we see off screen EQO either saw him go into this room or just punishes him after he hears the shot come off. That's the big problem with these flanks. You get yourself in this kind of position, Pine actually has to hit, I would say maybe 2 really good shots, not just one, in order to justify getting yourself killed in this way. And although both teams trade back Valkyries and Reses, that's always going to favor the defense because on the offense, you need punching power to break through. The defense used some ults in order to get them off the cart. NYXL have to regroup at this point. They don't have the numbers to fight this, but Fusion do a sick call in order to go aggressive, to catch them out, sneak in early contact to disrupt the setup, and this is just going to carry the entire fight. They're not ready for this halt hook to come out. Cooldown's just blasting into NYXL's face, and the Philadelphia Fusion just steal control of Junkertown right from under them when NYXL had a better time on the attack, I believe, or at least a comparable one. Getting shut out of third like this just wasn't really acceptable and came down to a lack of a clean attack on third and quite a poor defense, I'd have to say. That first map, Junkertown, is sort of a bad omen for the rest of the series because it proves the absolute dominance that Philly can perform when running this double sniper fortress of a team comp. They don't have to go on wacky Pine flanks. They play you straight up and are perfectly comfortable with landing better mechanical hits than you are without any trickery or intelligent engages or anything like that. They just play the basics to a really high mechanical level, which is going to be terrifying later in the series. One thing that's scary about Fusion is that they're very comfortable swapping over to the 3-3 GOATs composition and by no means are a double sniper one-trick team. They love just rushing you down and definitely do have the teamwork to make this work. The speed boost allows them to get into the opponent's spawn choke before NYXL can even get out. That's crazy. Pushing them back and giving a coalescence before the point even unlocks. A lot of chaotic fragging going back and forth, and it actually looks like the Fusion were going to have this fight. They capture the point and are going to clean up with a Graviton Surge, but wouldn't you know it, Jjonak charges the Transcendence, and Pine with a heroic Dragon Strike that cleans up the fleeing members of the multi-tank comp, and that dragon just absolutely eats them alive. A crazy set of ultimates, and goes to show you what's possible when you don't think of an ult fight based on numbers, but as resources. Typically, a lot of times in matchmaking, I see players who are down a man abandon a fight entirely. Just say, we need to regroup, just die. But what the top tier pros are capable of doing is doing the quick maths to figure out, well, we have Trance and Dragon. They're in a bad position. We can punish their Grav and their aggression in one fell swoop. An absolutely beautiful reversal of fortunes on that play. And despite having the opportunity to charge up for Graviton Dragon Strike, which is the matchmaking meta, or shall I say illusioned meta, every time I see pro Hanzos play, even with a Zarya, they're trying to launch this dragon to get a different fight. Getting a key pick off or launching it through a wall like this, it's a blind dragon, probably a big risk, but once he sees the Diva on recon, he's confident in just launching it through and gets pretty lucky on this one. The Philadelphia diffusion, hear it coming, and assume it's going to be where they are, so they back up into it. Very unlucky shot call there, but it ends up winning an entire fight. I think the reason why the pros do this is because Dragon Strike is even better than Barrage, because Barrage, a lot of times you just die when using it, right? Whereas if you want to pick one to toss into a grav, you'd rather do Barrage, because you can bubble the Pharah, absolutely pound into it, or a lot of times you don't even need damage follow-up, and you just can go for the traditional hammer swings into the grav. Sado attempts for the counter shatter out of it, but Janus protects himself and knocks them down once again. The multi-tank now reeling after a very difficult engage. And look at this again. This is some 200 IQ stuff, and you might feel like this is a huge risk in your matchmaking games, but Pine scouts out where the retake is coming from and launches the dragon, which gets one kill and also significantly damages the Zarya and just cuts off the reinforcements, which allows his front line to dominate the frontline battle. And despite them getting a grav off themselves, Liberals in the skies with the barrage cleaning up lots of kills, and they just get a big man advantage and are going to be able to brawl this out despite Carpe trying to do some last moment heroics. Very important for you guys playing out there when you're fighting up against a Zarya Graviton that's incoming, you have to disrupt the setup. Whatever ults you can toss at it to just screw up their ability to cleanly walk into the Graviton, launch it, and follow up, that's what you're going to want to do. It's very rare that I see pro teams fall victim to getting caught in a Graviton unless they just don't have any resources to deal with it, or if they're on the attack. Getting grabbed from a retake just shouldn't really happen. You should be able to toss resources at the oncoming Zarya to disrupt her. Now, moving on to the final round, Philly was able to clutch out the previous round, but we're just going to skip over that and get into the very action-packed Garden stage, where after a few early frags, Philadelphia is going to come out to a fairly significant lead. However, there is some absolutely masterful objective manipulation of the NYXL's tanks, as well as some carry pants plays made by Pine. So standing in this fight, NYXL pop both of their support ultimates in order to keep their tanks alive. Resources traded favors the defense because they have the point. They'll gladly have both teams pop all of their ults as long as they keep control. Feeling up in this fight and having the opportunity to drop some objective to go frag, Sado's Primal Rage and Carpe go at the NYXL back line. And they do a pretty good job of trying to peel for each other, Animo running away to last as long as he possibly can, and Pine picks up a very difficult headshot dink onto Carpe before he ends up getting cleaned up by Sado. And although Philadelphia did succeed in getting the backline, in the mix of all of this chaos, NYXL was able to steal the point back, and Philly's tanks don't make it back in time to contest, and now NYXL are allowed to use their tank ults to stall the point. Janus did a very good job here. Debatable in other maps, but we'll get to those, because remember, your supports are coming back in just 10 seconds. So even though Janus fails to get to them before he dies, he gets to a position that's very resible, getting him right back into the fight. Now Meko can use his tank ult to stall, and Philly here is just struggling to find something they meaningfully can fight. They finally spot up Jjonak, and the combined fire of EQO and Carpe get him, but not before Jjonak frags Carpe by himself with the helpful pocket of Animo, who just very barely gets away over to the bridge. Between these small little impact frags and Animo escaping on a razor's edge, it was all the difference in order to keep NYXL in this round. So Philadelphia decide, okay, we finally want to regroup at this point. Maybe if they get that mercy kill right then and there, they go in again, but they get all their members back and get set up to engage with this Diva Bomb. Boom, gets two, Jjonak and Pine. But Libero boops off the enemy team's Zenyatta and wins the midair battle. Absolutely huge play. Brawl happens on point. He just barely kills Sado before dying himself with the barrage. And now the Zenyatta Widow come back on the retake, and Pine gets an angle and absolutely pops off. I wish we got a replay on this one, but Pine's over at the side of the screen, popping people's heads, and Animo, who is the only support alive for NYXL, is just narrowly escaping death moment to moment. Eventually, Philadelphia start to swing it back into their favor, but after NYXL already picks up 99%. And this is this meta in a nutshell, guys. It comes down to your star players just popping off in these clutch scenarios. It's a map like this that I definitely can see Pine getting put in for, which is why we always saw Pine on the control maps, because it is just a death match. You need these type of mechanical plays in order to carry your way through when you just need clutch plays to happen. But I think it's a little bit questionable to put him in on some of the other maps, despite how insane he is mechanically, because like on the map previous, Junkertown, it's not so much about the kills you get, it's about the times when you die, because a key death in a bad situation is going to lose the entire point, and a lot of times the first kill duels account for most of the team fight anyway, so you don't necessarily need to be able to kill everything on your screen quickly in order to cap on Junkertown. There's a lot of advantageous positions you can put yourself in anyway. And at this point, another miraculous shake and bake play happens to sneak the objective back. Both DPS down for NYXL at this point, but you always have a damage source when Jjonak's on Zenyatta. He pops Transcendence on the point in order to force the fusion to vacate, and EQO tries to sneak in a barrage with the help of Boombox's Transcendence, and he either wasn't close enough to receive the benefits of the healing, or Jjonak just lined up a full volley and bursted him in the head. I'm not exactly sure. This is going to make it an incredibly difficult scenario now for the fusion, who have to scramble right back to get onto the point just to try to cap it back themselves. This allows NYXL's forces on the outside to bait the objective for a little bit as they go kill the stragglers as they come through, namely killing Neptuno. Now NYXL has their Mercy alive, and the fusion don't, not to mention more numbers down anyway, and that positional flip in order to steal the objective back, bully them off, so that then you have control of it, so you can allow them to waste time trying to cap it while you frag their backline. Really cool moves and shot calling there. But if you're rooting for the NYXL in this situation, you're starting to sweat bullets because it took some miraculous plays on this map to just get it over the line, which is why probably even with more preparation, this patch just wasn't going to be good for the NYXL. Now, we hear a lot of the fans complain when they see Janus come in for Mano, because most fans of the NYXL think Mano's better. And I've heard a lot of pro coaches make some really sound arguments for why Janus has a valid playstyle, which adds different elements to what NYXL wants to do. However, I don't know what the heck this is. In what world is this a good idea? He leaves the safety of his bunker, is nowhere near his team, is walking across multiple angles of threats from the enemy to get a mini health pack. I guess he just didn't see EQO get around the statue because he doesn't react to his presence at all, but why wouldn't he think that they'd be taking those free angles that the offense get from the jump? What is he even trying to accomplish on Orisa here? I have no idea what he was even thinking, and I have to think that there's some communication or misunderstanding on who's supposed to be where when. It just doesn't really make much sense. Neither does the way that they try to take this engagement against the triple tank here at Streets phase. We'll have to watch a bit of this through the wireframe from the alleyway in order to see where everybody's setting up here, but Neptuno can toss out Valkyries like candy because he has 3 tanks and he's a solo support. He's going to get another one in no time, so he pops that out in order to amp damage as well as heal, which is going to charge up his team's ultimates a lot sooner, which also gives Sato the supercharger, and this forces NYXL to back away, which is probably the right call, but also falls them victim to the dragon. Now, to some degree, after the horrific first fight, you can expect the second fight to go this way with such an ultimate advantage, but still, I don't even know what this setup was looking to accomplish, because the problem is, against the triple tank single support bunker, the cart riding fortress comp is allowed to hide behind both the cart itself, but also only peek when the shield's up. And the triple tank threat on the front line of Orisa, Diva, and Hog absolutely shred any frontline tank that tries to come challenge. Reinhardt's a bit more durable to this than maybe Winston would be, but at least Winston could contest the cart and run away. They're sending Reinhardt up here without a Zarya, and I don't know what their damage on the defense is even intended to hit. Carpe doesn't even have to really participate in this fight. He's just zoning out the angles from the alleyway, and because the NYXL can't really break the shield fast enough, they're not going to be able to get to any of the tanks or EQO on the Hanzo, and Janus's shield is just going to get shredded from these angles faster than anybody from the fusion could get punished. It's engagements like these that make me pretty confident that NYXL needed more practice on this patch, because they approach situations as if they assume their idea is a good one, and then look surprised as it doesn't work. With the Pharah and the Hanzo, they don't really have the damage type to stuff up this choke. Maybe a Junkrat would have done it. I think that would be pretty hard to run up against the double sniper. I'm not really a fan of playing that way. I think it makes it too hard on your single sniper. But neither Saebyeolbe or Libero are put into a position to do meaningful damage to the cart when everyone's huddled up in a hole riding it. If anything, this comp would have fared better once Pharah was allowed to abuse the rooftops to create problematic angles for the Widowmaker of Carpe as the cart starts to get moving, making their comp work a lot better once the cart starts to get around the corner of the library, where Rein will be able to halt the cart and hold onto it while avoiding a lot of damage himself, because he can get all of the enemy on the other end of the cart and he can stop it just by touching the tip of it. Whereas trying to jam it up on the choke here just let him feed his shield and actually gave the attacking team the natural cover of the cart, and he lost it himself. If you're going to play this close to the choke, which I think is good, you need to have the type of damage that was going to punish them from actually getting out. And Pharah and Hanzo are not it. They're way too slow. If you're using Pharah, you have to be looking for the positions where she's going to be good, and she starts to get really scary once the attacking team has to fight out a little bit more in open space, because she's going to get angles in order to see from a bird's eye view, pick out a target and go after them. But all that could be forgiven if they retake here with their ultimates, finding their mark. Diva Bomb to initiate actually chunks down Sato's Orisa, and they aggressively use Trance to just run over the Philadelphia Fusion's bunker, which almost looks like it's going to be a very good play, but Carpe pulls off one of the most impressive clips I've ever seen him put up. In the course of a couple seconds here, he duels every NYXL carry that they can throw at him. Libero, Saebyeolbe, and Jjonak all dead. What then? All your damage sources are gone. Carpe just has free reign after that point. Streets phase retake, a massive failure. And then going into third, more questionable decisions. They finally go to the Zarya, which I think is going to help beef up their front line against all this spam coming their way, but they're doing it on the most wide open part of the map, next to first, I guess. If they wanted to play close on streets, why not the Zarya then? Now with the less mobile death ball, Fusion's able to post up for a very imposing spawn trap. Love how far up Sato is here with the bunker, getting information where the enemy is coming out. Carpe, way in the back, is able to get an angle on the Zenyatta. Everyone on the Fusion is just finding kills, because now NYXL's comp is too slow. And with that, Fusion put up what is maybe the fastest Kings Road time in the Overwatch League. Absolutely outstanding. They look to be 2 steps ahead of everything NYXL was trying to do. And perhaps the more worrying sign for New York fans was the player cams after that half, which is going to be quite indicative of their level of play coming into their attacking side. Nobody talking, no hype out of anybody, and that to me states that the team's a bit dejected. Maybe they're struggling to be honest about what was wrong. They're not really looking to fix things and do something better, or maybe they're just taking a moment of silence to try to regroup after that horrific beating they just took. But they go to a strat that they eventually pull off better later in the series. Dive comp with Ana, attempting to try to get an anti-nade to land on a critical target, not to mention with all of the tanks hanging around, and even just the snipers as well, I suppose, are quite stationary. Sleep Dart is going to be a good ability to use. I think it's a decent strategy, but I don't know if King's Row is the right place to do it, because realistically, I don't think you're getting away with ever fighting these tanks playing dive, because look at how many resources they have to just dump into trying to kill Sato, and at this point, now the dive comp has to figure out a way to have basically no one die. But guess what? Because the 2 snipers for Philadelphia Fusion went uncontested, they get 2 kills, which is just going to snowball everything back. The problem is, even if you kill the Mercy, all the characters in this comp are able to frag, even if they don't get healing help, especially Roadhog, Widowmaker, and Hanzo, which all can dish out burst damage by landing their shots and abilities. Look at this next re-engage. They even get the first pick, and it's not even resable. The problem is you're playing up against Carpe, who's going to land headshots on dive tanks as they come in. They appeal back. Their entire team isn't with this dive, so Carpe has uncontested shots yet again. And another problem, Neptuno's got Valkyrie here, which this comp has no real answer beyond anti-nade against, which makes for a huge benefit for the single support strategy that you're going to be farming it up quite quickly. I think these dive tactics are definitely a legitimate idea, and we'll see better execution of this later in the other maps, which gives it a much better look. And essentially the strategy is that if you don't feel that you can beat them in the sniper battle at range, this is probably the only way you're going to get dive to work. But I think I would go one step further with it because I don't know what value the Mercy's actually getting in this comp. Before they switch off, they never even get a Valkyrie, which makes me think Arc can't really do much healing with this dive comp. And unless he's going in to damage amp, I don't know, the Winston or something, putting Arc massively in harm's way, I don't know what the Mercy does, actually, because unless you're winning the fight anyway, how are you getting a res off in the enemy's back line, right? Like, if the dive comp goes in and trades evenly, unless both the enemy snipers are dead, how are you getting a res off in the middle of the map during the chaos of all this? I just don't think it's going to happen, which makes me wonder if a Zen, a Lucio, or even a Moira would have been better in that slot, because a lot of times with strategies like these, you have to go all in to make them work at all. You got to use the components that actually work for the play you're trying to look for, and the reason why Zen Mercy used to work so well is that Zen was just so powerful that you sent all the mobility to chase after the Discord orb. He did a ton of damage himself, so you could pocket him with Mercy, but if you're not running Zen, you're running Ana, Ana's rifle value is way lower than Zen's free cast of Discord and his orbs. You don't really want to be damage jamping Ana. It doesn't really make much sense. You pick her for her sleep and anti. That's her biggest value, and Mercy doesn't really amplify that at all. But in any case, NYXL show a fairly troubling sign that when things aren't working, they switch it up to the GOATS comp, which we didn't show this on the Li Jiang game, but the one round they lost on that map was when they utilized the 3 tank, 3 support comp against an enemy Pharah, and it got destroyed. And despite it never working for them, they go to this comp a few times, which I think is just a big mistake at the Overwatch League levels of play. In your ladder games, run this all day. Run as many tanks as you want, because realistically, at most levels of play, the enemy's DPS will not be good enough to get the number of headshots that are required in order to make this comp look silly. But NYXL isn't playing some ladder scrubs. They're playing against Carpe and EQO, which are either the number 1 or number 2 DPS duo in the entire league, maybe the entire world. The only duo that I think competes with them is Prophet and Birdring, and that's when they're at their peak. EQO and Carpe have been tearing it up all season long, not a slump to be seen. You're going to see how these fights break out, where the snipers are uncontested again, and the thought process with GOATS is that we'll just run over your front line too fast and have too much of a man advantage by the time we're taking the objective and you'll have nothing to do, but it doesn't seem like the double sniper defense really cares about that. Just carefully, confidently taking shot after shot and just melt this entire idea. It's getting quite frustrating seeing teams trying to force this into the Overwatch League when it really just doesn't work whenever they pull it out. Like, it's capped a few points, but largely I would say the success rate of GOATS in this level of play has been really low. Anyway, moving on to Hanamura, which was a very interesting map. Finally, NYXL shows their defensive prowess and their ability to shot call and allocate resources appropriately as a team. The Philadelphia Fusion dive controls the entire map within seconds, but NYXL are confident in their timings and knowing how much of the objective they can bait. They full retreat to kill the attacking Winston, then step their toe back onto the point, rotating their tanking cooldowns of the Orisa and the defense matrix to try to prolong a stall onto the objective, pivoting back and forth through the bunker to just prolong their lives as long as possible. Despite Philly being up in this fight just about the entire time, they're milking off a couple minutes off of a point A take, which, to be honest, point A has been very easy for a lot of teams to take. A lot of times they take it in the first go, so 2 minutes shaved off is nothing to sneeze at. And then NYXL switches to a comp that I think is meta-defining for Hanamura B. A lot of teams look really confused on how to play this map, especially this section of it, but the combination of the Ana Brigitte metagame is what really wins out in some of these maps where the defenders have a massive spawn advantage. The sleep dart hitting Sato's primal raged Winston is massive here, and the thing with Ana and Brigitte together is that Brigitte plays as a frontline character that heals her and other things, as well as deals burst stun, everything that we know Brigitte does, and Ana is insane at comboing with her. Her nade amplifies healing and denies it for the enemy team, which is a really big deal for the Brigitte heals. Now, it works on that first defense, but they do eventually switch Animo back over to the Mercy. Realistically, if the Fusion's attack here doesn't do enough to counter the Brigitte, you can do this, but as Eddie's video on Ana already pointed out, the Ana really does a lot more in these high impact scenarios than Rez even can, especially when you have these fights that you're going to get guaranteed anti-nade value out of. But Brigitte is really all you need in order for the defense to be really strong here, because she just stalls point and is annoying and very difficult to outright kill. And this was the one map where Fusion looked quite undisciplined, being a bit too ambitious with their ult usage, which you just simply can't do on Hanamura B. You gotta come out with a confident plan and target selection, and when things start getting a little too scrappy, you're just not really going to be able to clutch your way out of these fights. They don't even end up getting a tick on this point, which gives an opportunity for NYXL to show off their Ana tech once again. This first attack, they go for this full dive onto the multi-tanks again, and Jjonak from afar, I do believe, hits 2 sleep darts. One was on the enemy Mercy here, the other to silence Carpe as he was attempting to do Carpe things and carry the fight. And this gives NYXL a massive advantage going into B, and it takes a great deal of discipline to pop all of these ultimates at the right time to get an overwhelming control of the map. And we're going to see Ana be very critical in order to get this attack to even work at all against the enemy's Brigitte. Now with Carpe's sights, Hotba sees them through a wall, just sort of waiting it out. So he launches the self-destruct in there in order to get some free kills, cash in that team fight token, which does work. But Mano goes for the 500 IQ play and sneaks his way to the outside, which I think is very critical and underutilized out of attacking teams here. They send way too many resources to the top right. I think you gotta send some sort of flanking presence to the bottom left to disrupt, pressure the point, or go at the snipers or DPS that are down there in order to pull some attention towards you. And once doing that, the top right can come through. They pop out Nano Blade, which has basically nothing to kill, but it zones everybody out and gets the NYXL to be able to be fighting on the front foot. Just doing that first step in order to get up that stairwell is a huge task in its own right, and popping the resources on the left and the right in order to force the enemy back is one of the best ways to do it. And now this is where Ana makes her money. Notice her ult charge. She just recently used Nano on the Genji at the start of this fight, and throughout it, she lands 2 sleeps on Sato's Winston and gets a clutch anti-nade onto EQO's Brigitte. And once that Brigitte or her teammates can't take use of the triple support heals that is coming through for that team comp, that anti-nade gets massive value. This is something that we talked about with Brigitte a long time ago, and it just seems now that it's starting to be proven that with and against Brigitte, Ana is a very strong pick and something that you should consider, especially if you're going to struggle even taking a tick against an enemy Brigitte. You got to set up that Ana in order to carry for you, and it might not be as pound for pound powerful as a Rez is theoretically. Sometimes you have to just go big or go home and set yourself up for difficult to land abilities, sure, but ones that will actually do the job. No amount of Rez and Transcendence really wins you a fight on Hanamura B. You eventually have to land a good Nano, Sleep, and Anti-Nade, and then you actually, I think, can set up for a win condition. The map Dorado, with the established meta as we know it with the 3 tank double sniper setups, favors the attacking team quite a bit, at least on first and second, and then it outrageously favors the defending team on third. Both teams are able to set up for their offensive plays to find purchase on both point A and the streets phase. Reason being that once the attacking team gains control, it's very difficult for the defensive team to try to retake space into them, because you're going into their snipers' lines of sight then. You might say to yourself, well, doesn't that benefit the defense once they establish their own sight lines first? Kind of. The problem is the attacking team's pushing the cart all the while, so your team kind of has to actively get in there in order to do something to stop the cart, which as the attacking team gets to decide how much aggression they put forward, they kind of can bait you into trying to defend, pounce you, and then make it even harder for you to come back and retake once they get the map. So with that being the case, both teams are going to have an opportunity to be able to finish the map, but unfortunately for NYXL, Fusion actually does more with less time. Just over 2 minutes going into third, NYXL swaps to the meta Brigitte DPS pick, which despite Philadelphia's double sniper on paper countering, it actually isn't good enough to quickly get the defenders off the cart, because even in a losing fight, the defense can just touch the cart and spin around it, use their diva to jump on and off the cart. It's really hard for the attacking team to get past the Brigitte, to kill the carries, and then somehow kill the cart stall characters with any type of efficiency. The defense of NYXL is actually performing admirably and looking very classic NYXL, with the backbone of Jjonak putting in a ton of work, with all the protection in the world with his bodyguard Brigitte and Mercy Pocket by his side. It looks like they're going to be able to hold it at the corner here. Jjonak pops his Transcendence, which he's been charging quite quickly. NYXL takes a bit of an advantage, but the Fusion just never say die. They're popping their ults in order to maintain in this fight, which should have been good for NYXL, as you see the attacking team kind of just floundering behind the cart, using all sorts of resources to no avail. Jjonak gets 2, but then in the chaos of it all, a classic Poco bomb is going to be the difference maker, with just 30 odd seconds left on the clock. Picks up 2, and I don't even know if either of these needed to die to this diva bomb. I think they just didn't see it coming. Poco launched it from a really awkward angle from the bottom of the ramp, and it comes up to the top of it. I can't really see if, say, Bjolby just didn't have a shield in order to block this, and actually it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why Arc even died to this at all. It looks to me like he was behind this pillar and died. I don't really get it, but this is a game-winning self-destruct, because now the Philadelphia Fusion can go back in, kill Jjonak, who lost his buddy Pocket, and now they get the map. That's the most important thing. It's really hard to ever get your entire attacking team to be able to spawn trap the enemy. And now NYXL pulls out the Reinhardt in order to shields up on the point to try to just buy time for as long as they can. There's actually some really heroic stall here from the NYXL, but knowing how things pan out on the attacking side, I know these heroics kind of don't matter, unfortunately. There's even a point here where Arc does some outrageous Mercy movement to dodge all the damage sources and stall the cart himself, getting time for the emergency Doomfist to come back and Tracer to get a kill, allowing for the defense to overwhelm. But now on to the attacking side. NYXL bringing out this Ana dive again, which all things considered works 2 out of the 3 times they use it. I mean, it fails miserably on King's Row, but I think it was more problems than just the comp there. But it works on Hanamura, and right out the gate here, it seems to be working again. This time they are able to get an angle on the Mercy. If you look, Pine goes super aggro and starts attacking her right away, forcing out her Guardian Angel, putting her health points down low, and Mano follows up to confirm the kill. Now, this is kind of an ideal scenario for NYXL to get into, because even if they trade unfavorably for the single heal Mercy, if they have Jjonak alive at range, not only does he get a sleep on the Roadhog here and an anti to pressure him down, but now the Fusion are going to be forced to play on the back foot, because NYXL's tanks are going to have healing and Fusion won't. And interestingly enough, NYXL even decide to take an entire early fight here, not pushing the cart at all. I think I wish they had at least one person back there doing it. I don't think they need their entire team here to win this fight on the front line, but Mano dives in, and all of the damage is getting sucked up by Meko's defense matrix here. Really good cleave. Remember, the enemy only has that one Mercy to outdo a Winston damage, so if he cleaves on multiple targets, he's actually going to be way ahead in the damage exchange. But in any case, Dive Comp bottles them up, and NYXL are willing to just pop as many ults as is required in order to get this cap. They don't want any heroics coming out of the Fusion. Clean them up convincingly and put the max number of people on cart in order to ride it into the checkpoint. The late kills against the Fusion were enough to stop for any retake to be possible. And then setting up on streets, sure, it helps that Pine gets a pick off as well, but this Nano Monkey is actually legit. I always hope that you use the Nano Boost on the Monkey in order to charge his Primal Rage, but even if he already has it, he's still your best nano target because it makes him so durable and critically charges the Tesla cannon to do more damage than either healer, Zen, or Mercy can stop. So pretty much whatever he's able to get on and fight with a little bit of help will definitely die. But for whatever reason though, despite this Ana working so well and the Fusion switching back to Brigitte in preparation for the third point anyway to try to slow down the advancements of this dive, Jjonak goes to Zenyatta, and I just don't get why? They structured all of their game plan around this Jjonak carry Ana pick, which has been great against the multi-tank, been great against the Brigitte, been great even working with your own Brigitte. Why in the world do they think Zenyatta is going to be better for this last point on Dorado? I have no clue, because I think this Dorado third point is even worse than Hanamura B, because the problem is getting the cart all the way around the corner is like 3 Hanamura Bs or something. It's an insane amount of fighting and brawling and fight wins and control that you have to have in order to clear them off the cart. And the crazy thing about this is that they have 4 minutes to get it around the corner. The aggression that they had been putting up to this point let them start further up than the Fusion had in order to get it up to the checkpoint. And it's this kind of team fight that really breaks down why this map is so difficult to close out on, because look, they're sending successful flank damage into the enemy's backline. Completely disrupted. Bano's doing a great job here. The problem is, defensively speaking, it's much easier to stay alive on the cart for the defense than it is for the attacking team to kill them, unless you have characters, I don't know, like Ana that stops the enemy from healing to win out against the Brigitte. That backline harassment doesn't get you anything until you get the cart cleared off. But you can't put all your resources onto the cart either, because then the DPS of the Fusion carry. It's a catch-22. We've already seen how well that Carpe and EQO play when they're given room to work with. I don't think you ever ease off the pressure off them. You have to directly go at them and have the right comp to deal with the rest of the Fusion, and you win here. On Twitter, former Rogue Pro player Wins, who used to play the Zarya and then for the majority of his career the Lucio for that team, for example, explained how he couldn't understand why they didn't go for big tank ultimates with Rein and Zarya. I tend to agree with this as well. I think you have to have either or. The mid-fight impact and ultimate damage boost of Ana can really swing a fight. Anti-nade, nano, they can't heal, and you do extra damage with your Winston Cleave through Brigitte's shield. That can work. Or a Dragon Strike on the cart, Earth Shatter on the cart. You have to bring the heat in the ult fight in order to close out these really hard points. Ana Zen doesn't do it. All you end up doing is mirroring the enemy's ability to sustain and brawl, which is not what you need as the attacking team. You need punching power. And it's odd that NYXL seemingly forgot this in the final moments of Dorado, especially when this exact thing happened to them in the first series. Now, I said we weren't going to go over the first series, but I think it's important to see that the game plan here of NYXL fell flat. It's not just the meta, it's not the format. You can't make every excuse in the book for NYXL when they should have known better on this final point. And this last time, they had even more time to get it a shorter distance. This is from the first series. Look, 2.5 minutes left, not very far to go at all. Pine is searching for an angle to get a kill. Sato tries to punish the grappling hook, but Jjonak is there with the support. They burn him down. That's one tank that's off the cart now. Should be easier to get the cart moving, right? Especially after Jjonak frags EQO. Well, problem is, Hot Buzz allowed to do a zoning ult to clear off the cart, gets him a fresh mech. In the chaos, Carpe frags Pine off screen, and even though Saebyeolbe puts his pulse bomb on Hot Buzz back, well, it's nerfed now, it doesn't do anything. Trance comes in to save him, and guess who's back as well? Sato! Once again, tanks back alive on point, brawls continuing, and here EQO swaps over to the Brigitte, which is just going to help them in this effort. NYXL was kind of winning this fight, but with the way these brawling and mobility tactics work is that the defense always can just put a toe on the point and just keep channeling their tanking presence, whether it's the dive tanks who can run away, or Brigitte who has a shield with 600 health you can't break through and an insta-kill on you. Well, now she punishes Saebyeolbe, he's out of the fight. And before you know it, we're getting down to the final minute now. No advantage for NYXL here at all. They probably should regroup. Pine goes for the Desperation Doomfist swap. Jjonak uses his Transcendence, which, yes, saves him from the Diva Bomb and allows for his team to go aggressive and brawl, but the enemy has Trance too, so you just equalized that resource, not building an edge for you whatsoever. That's the problem with Trance, I think, in these points like this. It's great in a lot of ways, but if the enemy has one too, you don't counter it with your own, you just equalize it. And that's not what you need on the attack. I'd much rather him take a risk and be playing Ana in this situation, which yes, is going to be a more brittle, more difficult to play hero right now, but when the enemy trances and you're Ana, you have a chance to anti-nade, sleep, and nano back in order to be ahead in that exchange. Whereas two dueling trances, it's just whichever one used theirs later wins, or the defense just wins, because as long as they wait a few seconds, they'll get another player back out of spawn. Trance lasts 6 seconds, a respawn timer is only 10. So even if you're at a 2-person advantage on the cart, they can slowly lose a fight, trade out support so it sustains, and in a few seconds, they'll be back with full numbers again, and if they get any kill on you, your reinforcement is miles out in the distance. Moving back to the final version of Dorado here in the map 5 version of the second series, 3 minutes now. Still plenty of time to swap to a big ult combo or to Ana in the flex support slot to get some big impact going, but they're continuing on with this brawl. And it's a huge problem for the attacking side that they can easily get baited into some of these engagements where it looks like it is winnable, but it's not even close to winnable because trades start to happen. And of course, trades are going to favor the defense. And the problem is now, because NYXL hasn't swapped to any sort of big wipe strategy yet, the cart's been rolling back. It used to be at the last corner of the ramp, now rolled all the way back to the other end. And they go for a Hanzo pick here, which I think is a good start. Hanzo's got the punching power and the ultimate that you're looking for that will finally get you some progress on the cart. Even just the Hanzo ult alone on the cart will at least get it to move a little bit. But EQO with the big brain swaps, always on top of things. With no Widow on the enemy team, well, now I can just play Pharah. And if I'm NYXL and I'm pressing tab and I see EQO on Pharah, after seeing the devastation that he did on the other maps where they tried to run the Brigitte in the DPS slot and EQO was on a projectile, I would just went back and swapped immediately. This comp from NYXL doesn't satisfy any win condition. It doesn't go at the DPS of the Fusion, which I think you have to do in order to beat them at all, and it doesn't really create any kind of big ult combo in the cart to have a big impact to clear it off either. EQO just rains rockets down from above. Sure, Pine does build up to a Dragon Strike really fast. The tank bust on Hanzo is amazing, but instead of swapping the Brigitte here, they dropped the Dragon Strike, which quite possibly would have been the best spatial creation ult they could have had to control the cart. They keep Saebyeolbe on the Brigitte and go into full Goats comp. And at this point, it's, I don't know if it's panic, confidence that they want to lose as bad as they did on King's Row again. I'm not exactly sure. This Brigitte is doing little to nothing for them, and I know it can be frustrating as a Tracer player in Saebyeolbe to go up against the enemy Brigitte, which happened to them last map, but why not put him on the Widow and run the double sniper here? Especially when you see EQ on the Pharah. That at least would force him to swap off to something else and would give you a chance. If anybody's going to end up playing the Zarya, it should be Meko running the Rein Zarya, and maybe in a couple minutes you're able to grind up to a Graviton Strike combo using the first Dragon Strike to even get you some space. But at this point, you just got to say, like, NYXL was not in the headspace to win this game. They fought back pretty confidently and definitely gave Philadelphia a run for their money in this final series, but just based on the play and the swaps alone, Fusion was in control for the majority of it. Both teams gave it their all, and it was an amazing series to watch, but that last 4 minutes on Dorado is going to haunt NYXL for a long time. I think that section is even more gut-wrenching than the King's Row defeat, because on King's Row, let's just be honest, Philly had a sick game plan and their double sniper was popping off. What do you do in that situation? Sometimes you just lose a map convincingly. But this is a situation where NYXL had the cart up the ramp with 4 minutes left and looked seemingly lost on what swaps would have worked in order to seal the deal. Not making the grand finals, I think, is excusable. A lot of other teams are sick on this patch and very clearly better. For example, I don't think they would fare very well in a third series against Philadelphia, and London look possibly even stronger than Philly, which is devastating. So it wasn't really their grand finals to win, but this Dorado map definitely was. Philly, even when they looked bad, looked in control of the game and kept coming back time and time again, refreshed even after losing harsh team fights or dropping a map here or there, whereas NYXL looked more and more drained by the end of it. Like they were grasping at answers and didn't actually even know what was working for them on the maps that they did win. Jjonak's Ana is actually sick, and it counters this Brigitte triple support nonsense, so why not run it? Despite NYXL dropping the ball here in the semifinals, I think we did get the two best teams in the playoffs for this patch going to the grand finals, so I am very excited to be able to be there in person to see London duke it out with the Philly Fusion. If you're going to the Barclays Center for the finals, be sure to check out our Twitter, where we may be able to do a fan meetup at some point, or if you just see me out and about, don't be afraid to say hi. But for now, that's been it for me. This video's gone on far long enough. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave it a like. It takes a lot of time to do these breakdown videos like this, so the support is definitely appreciated. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you watched the video this long, you definitely should, and hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. We upload each and every day. And be sure to follow us on Twitter. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.